We aren't born special, we create our special.
Break the box of rules.
If you want to do something, just do it.
What if I gave you $1 million? Could you figure it out then?
Can you show up after losing is a secret to winning more often.
Is hospitality a craft?
Can you screw up the food and save it with the service?
Where's the sales? What's the weather?
An overnight success that took 30 years of blood, sweat, and tears. You can't live in Chicago and not know about Gibsons Steakhouse. It's definitely a household name. But so happy to have in the studio today Steve Lombardo from Gibsons Restaurant Group, CEO of Gibsons Restaurant Group. So Steve, for those of you who may know Gibsons but may not know about you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, my name is Steve Lombardo. Thanks, first of all, for having me. I happen to be fortunate enough to have the same last name as the guy who founded the Gibsons Steakhouse and Gibsons Restaurant Group. My father started the company about 37 years ago. He's been in the restaurant business almost his entire life, about 58 years he's been in the business. I grew up in the business, bussed tables as a kid, had a father who was working all the time and, really pushed his 4 children to get away from the business. And so, we all went to college. We all had different careers. I ended up becoming a lawyer, practiced law, corporate law for about 17 years, did private equity M&A. Actually, before that, had done some entrepreneurial things, had a television program when I was in college and law school. I had a couple real estate projects that I had done. And then I was in my starting class. There were 75 kids who started the firm I was at around the United States, and I was picked to be the first to leave. They expected me to start my own thing and do something. And what had happened, my father at one point early in my legal career had asked me to figure out how to import wine and really to support the restaurant business. And so I had a wine importing business for about a dozen years, in addition to practicing law, and then ultimately joined the family business about a decade ago.
Wow. So we have a lot in common there because my dad immigrated to the United States, go figure, Greek, and restaurants.
Yeah.
I grew up in the restaurant business as well, very early age, 8 years old, bussing tables in the back, cleaning, doing things in the back office, and grew. But my dad was exactly the same way. He wanted me and my sister. He was pushing us away from the restaurants. He's like, I did the long hours. I did all of this so that you guys can have a better life and career.
Right.
So, yeah, I could totally relate to that part of it. So your dad was in the business, every day, all day.
Correct.
Probably missed a lot of family gatherings.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a period from about 8 to 18 where Monday through Saturday, I would wake up, he'd be asleep. I would come home and he would not be home. Sometimes my mother too, because she was working in the business when it first started. And there were some nights in high school where I got home at hours that I should have been grounded for months and still beat them home.
Yeah.
And then Sundays where he slept all day. I mean, he was like literally catching up on a week's worth of sleep in one day, and then lather, rinse, repeat. So.
Yeah. So growing up in that type of household where your dad was constantly working, entrepreneur, what kind of impact did that have on you?
So, one of the things about being in the restaurant business generally is you get to meet a lot of interesting people. And I remember at a young age, when we would see him, we would go to the restaurants. And this was pre-Gibsons. He had other restaurants and bars that existed before then. And would meet these people, and he'd always make it a point to introduce me to people, partly to get over my internal shyness as a kid. I really was very introverted, and it was, in his mind is you just got to be out talking to people, and you got to meet people and not be afraid to speak with people. And I got to meet some people who were pretty successful, and they were heads of law firms or businesses or real estate, developers. And, you'd talk to them and you'd hear about their backgrounds. And it wasn't like they were anything special. They just, they came from the neighborhood. I'll put air quotes around that, right? And they happened to, they either went to school and worked their butts off in school, or they were risk takers, right? They had the cojones to go out and just bet on themselves. I remember meeting one of my father's friends who had started this ice cream cone company, and he did a deal with Louisville Slugger, and they were like baseball bat shaped ice cream cones, and and he had sold. He had been selling them to Dean Foods, and I said, "Well, how did you do that?"
Yeah,
and I was like 8 or 9 years old. I said, "Well, I called him up."
Just
and I was
pick
like,
up the phone?
pick up the phone and called him. And I was like, huh. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to that. But as a kid, it was like, oh, that's possible. Like, you can just do that. Like, I had in my mind this box of rules around me. And the neighborhood I happened to grow up in was Park Ridge, over by O'Hare Airport. And my grade school class, 60 kids, a third to half of them, their dads were entrepreneurs. Oh, wow. And it could have been they had their own businesses, or they were a doctor who had their own practice, or there was one guy, his dad was an independent truck driver. He's a self-made businessman, right? And so that was just, if you wanted to do something, you just did it. And that was kind of really cool to see. And it didn't really connect the dots for me until I was probably in my early teens or so. But my father would always have, whenever as a child, I would say like, oh, I can't do that. And he'd say, what if I gave you $1 million? Could you figure it out? And I'd go, well, yeah. He goes, well, then do it. There's no $1 million, but you just said you can do it. This I can't doesn't work.
The I can is just, it limits you. And, growing up in an entrepreneurial household, I think from a very young age, it's like, what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
You got to try.
Right.
And you have to be able to try and get after it. And, you see a lot of people are so afraid to be able to try things. Yeah. And even just, yes, picking up the phone to call Dean's Foods, or, trying to open up a business with $500 and a laptop like I did. So it was just like what's the worst thing that can happen to you? But I'm at a very young age, it really brings it and instills it into how you actually, your fabric.
Yeah. I live in the North Shore suburbs right now, and I can't tell you the frustration when I see other parents trying to protect their kids from failure. And I remember when my kids were little and starting to do sports, and I told my wife, I said, I hope they all have a season where they win every game in a row, they win the championship, and they have all the accolades. I said, I hope they also have a season where they lose every game. They have to learn to show up every single day and still give it their all, And I'd say that, and some parents, and especially more moms and dads, would like, how can you say that? I'm like, because I want them to learn about life. This is not, sports is just it's how you learn life lessons. It's not for an end of in itself, right?
Yeah, it's not rainbows and unicorns.
Right.
You got to be able to take the blows too. So what kind of sports do the kids play?
So mine played soccer, baseball, football, track, cross country. They played some other things too, but those were the ones that they kind of played sort of deeper into their career. And then my daughter, she was a singer. She did a cappella. Pitch Perfect, like those movies.
Yeah. She was on it?
No, she was not on it. But she did a lot of those competitions.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, the sports side of it is something I want to come back to in a little bit. But, talking about being in the restaurant business or in the hospitality business, one of the things I actually read and something that you had said is that hospitality is more of a craft. It's not a slogan. In order to make hospitality, truly and instill that into the way a business operates, into the fabric, what does that mean to you, and how do you actually get that across to your staff? Yeah,
there's a lot of,
I know it's a
lot of slogans I could say or quotes. Service is what you do, and hospitality is how you make somebody feel. Yep. It's about building that emotional connection with the customer. But at the end of the day, it's, in the hospitality industry, you have to have it in your gene where you want to serve other people, and that's fulfilling. Because if it's not, you are not in the right business. Now, service as a whole, across all industries, and I've actually talked with a few other spoken to leadership groups of other companies who are in manufacturing or roofing or that sort of thing. And, we have a saying in our business, you can screw up you can screw up the food, but save it with the service.
Yeah.
And but you screw up the service and you lose a customer. So, we're going to make a lot of mistakes in our business. We're not a manufacturing business. So, this idea of reducing your error rate to 1 part per million or 6 Sigma, that sort of thing, like that's an impossibility in the restaurant business just because of the human factor alone. But mistakes are an opportunity to show the customer that level of hospitality and what will you do to go above and beyond to make it right for them.
So on that front, with you have all these restaurants in the group, different personnel, different personalities. You mentioned the manufacturing side, and you have all these other business owners and different businesses that you operate with or you work with. Same thing for us. Our slogan and the way that we really approach it is service is senior to everything that we do.
That's great.
It has to be
Love it.
Yeah, it truly has to be senior because, there's going to be a lot of obstacles. There's going to be different things that are happening. But one thing that you can control is, people will always forget what you tell them, but they're never going to forget the way that you make them feel.
Exactly.
And making them feel in a particular way, even if somebody's calling here for example, technical support. Yeah, they're in a vulnerable state. They're having challenges. They're having issues. They're calling us. We have to be able to make them feel good. And that starts with service. And making service senior to everything we do is a great strategy.
100%. 100%. I love that. I might steal it.
You should. You should. So the brand Gibsons,
Yes.
You mentioned that your dad had started and there were other restaurants. And, when did Gibsons, when was that first introduced?
So Gibsons it opened in 1989. I was a freshman in high school.
Okay.
He had been in the bar and restaurant business in Chicago, had restaurants and bars in and around the city and the suburb, maybe one or two in the burbs, and had actually a nightclub in Vegas.
Okay.
He had grew up with a bunch of guys that they had gone into business together. The partnership had split up, and he ended up with the restaurant that ended up becoming Gibsons. It had been open for about maybe 10 years or so when he realized the restaurant had sort of run its course. He needed to reconcept it and do something. He actually went to New York on an R&D trip with 2 other gentlemen, one of which was Rich Melman from Let Us Entertain You.
Yep.
And they probably ate at 30 places in 26 hours or 24 hours. And he came back with the idea for this old classic saloon steakhouse, and was very counter to what was going on in the restaurant space in Chicago at that time. And Chicago, at that time was also, and you're from Chicago?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how old are you?
48.
48. Okay, so I've only got 4 years on you. Chicago was not a great spot to live in the early 80s, and it had. It was in danger of sort of going the way of Detroit. At the time he opened, Gibsons happened to be when Daley got elected. There was already somewhat of it started bouncing maybe back a little bit, but, people complain about the state of Chicago today. And trust me, I think there's lots of improvements to be made, but, the crime rate was still worse then than it is now. People forget that. And so, he decided on this restaurant and opened it up, and there's kind of a saying, it's like a 30-year overnight success story.
Yeah.
It feels like it's been there forever. It feels like it could have been there for 100 years. It's something, and that's part of the look that he was going for, but it took a while for it to take off.
Yeah.
It took a few years, and it struggled for the first several years.
Yeah, just like many businesses, oftentimes people look at the final product and they're like, oh, I want that, but they don't know all the challenges and sacrifices and blood, sweat, and tears that went into actually getting to that point. They look at, especially nowadays, like you see it with all the social media and everything is all visible, everything is great, 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 and people just look at that final product or that final state and they think that
Right.
it just came overnight. It was an overnight success. But the reality is there was so much work. There were days that, sleepless nights, blood, sweat, and tears,
Yep.
sacrifices that were made.
fires, floods. The statute of limitations, I think, is passed on this one, which at one point a raccoon got into the restaurant, and it was this is 35 years ago, but they had to call animal control to try and get it out of the walls. I mean, crazy stuff happens.
Crazy stuff happens. So I mean, we have since 1989. You said Gibson's. The name first was introduced. I mean, to create a brand that survives decades is something that takes a lot of work. That's not luck. I mean, there's so much work that goes into it. So for you to create this brand that, again, if you're in Chicago and you don't know Gibson's, you're not from Chicago. You're lying. If you can tell somebody that you meet that's from out of the state and then you ask them about what do you know in Chicago, Gibson's will likely come up. It's such a household name, especially in the Chicagoland area. What does it
By
take?
the way, I hope that's the case. I have met people from Chicago who don't know it. So
it
happens.
That's very surprising to me. Well, maybe they're out I don't know in the field somewhere, not in the metropolitan area. That's for sure. To create a brand that's long lasting, I mean, to survive decades. I started the business 26 years ago. Still working. I'm not at that level that you're at with brand recognition, especially in kind of that hospitality side, but service being so senior. What does it take to keep power in a brand like Gibson's?
Yeah, so I think it's a few things. First, the name itself was something that my father, he agonized over that name. I still remember I was 14. He had a list of 100 names, and Gibson's wasn't even on that list. He had some really goofy ones that were on there, and he wanted something that was classic and all-American sounding. And it really, actually, I'll tell the story behind the name. What happened was there was a writer who wrote a pamphlet for the convention center, McCormick Place, for the conventioneers that were coming to town and tourists. And he would, his name was John Gibson. And he would write about the restaurants that were opening and closing and where to go and that sort of thing. And he had mentioned that my father was closing down. The restaurant that was there was called Sweetwater, and that he was going to open up a new one, and he was going to call it Gibson's after him. And that was kind of out there. They were weeks away from opening. The sign company's like, you got to give us a name, or the sign ended up going up, I think, a couple months after we opened. He was struggling with it. And that came to him, and they had art that was on the walls from a turn of the century artist named Dana Gibson, who was the first artist in America to really feature women outside of a homemaker role. And then they decided, you know what, we need a signature drink. We'll make it the Gibson Martini. The opening manager's name happened to also be Gibson, and so Gibson's is a plural. It's not. There's no apostrophe in it. It's the multiple stories of Gibson's of how it came to be.
Wow.
So that's the name.
It's a great story.
So that's one piece. But then the brand itself. Brand is execution, right? It's just relentless execution. And one thing that we're very good at is brute force. we figure out a way to make things happen through sheer effort and perseverance. And sometimes. We could do things on an easier way, but we ultimately figure out ways to get it done. My father it goes back to that story about what would you do if there were $1 million? If I would pay you $1 million to do something, could you figure out how to get it done? And so that mentality, I don't think he's ever used that in the business because he's not going to be able to pay it. But that mentality has transcended through the entire company for pretty much our entire existence.
So the restaurant business is very competitive. A lot of factors that can impact the overall success of business. But one thing that we touched on a bit was the service side of it. How do you build a culture of delivering a great service that your customers at the restaurants actually feel and want to come back? Yeah.
So it's not easy. And it took a while. Part of it was setting the example. My father would, and his partner Hugo Raleigh, would set that example. And
Hugo's Frog Bar?
Hugo's is named after him, much to Hugo's chagrin.
All right.
it's that setting that example, but then just it's constantly reiterating it and showing how it works. Meaning, we're fortunate that a good chunk of our staff, especially the frontline interaction between the customer and the organization, is a person who is compensated based on their service.
Yeah.
Right. So
Huge.
how much they get at the end of the night is going to depend on how good they are at serving the customer. And we try to empower our folks and give them all sorts of ways to do that, right? I mean, if they screw something up, they can comp whatever they want. I mean, a manager may have to sign off on it, but the managers aren't questioning it unless, after 2 months, somebody is comping
Constantly,
10%.
yeah, it's
Right,
like every
exactly.
meal.
So, the idea is they are empowered to do whatever it takes to make sure the customer at the end of the night is happy. And so if it means writing off an entire bill and comping it, so be it, to make things right, again, to fix any mistakes. It's about...
and mistakes happen.
Mistakes happen, and they happen a lot. The other thing is, we've been fortunate to have, in an industry where we have significant turnover. I mean, the average turnover in a restaurant is like 80 to 100%. We're half that.
Yeah.
It's still a big number relative to other industries. And our turnover is probably 40 to 50%. It's not, and that's a little bit misleading because it's not 50%. It's more like 20% of the company is turning over multiple times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a lot of, tenured employees who've been with us a long time. And so, pre-technology, when everything was written in a book, you had a lot of people who had institutional knowledge and memory of the customer. They know what they liked, what they didn't like, what they were allergic to, what booth they wanted to sit in, and that sort of thing. And so, and they'd know them by name. So, Mr. Johnson, you've come, welcome to Gibson's. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
So, that recognition is also a huge part of it.
It's
right?
such a little piece, though. By adding something that seems so small.
Yeah.
And
Oh, it's everything. Here, being Greek, being Italian, this is we come from a culture where everybody's got a guy for something.
Yeah.
Well, I got a guy who, for anything, right? I don't really, but like that's kind of the mentality you hear from your uncles and that sort of thing. Well, that's the same thing. Like if you can be that guy for somebody, hey, I got a guy who can always call me for a reservation. I can always call him for a reservation, and we try to tell all our people, be that guy, be that person that they can. You know what? I can't find a reservation online, but I'm calling you. Can you help me out? And okay, that's it.
Yeah.
So.
I've been reading this book. I don't know if you've read it, Unreasonable Hospitality.
Oh, I have.
Yeah, and it just, it's just that some of these actions are so small, like they don't cost anything.
They don't have to be big.
They don't have to be
They
big.
They can be big,
but
they
they
don't
can
have
leave
to be.
such an impact on the individual and such a memorable experience by just going above and beyond on some things.
Yes.
It's amazing, and it's hard to teach that though.
So I'll tell you a big story and a little story about how it can. Well, I'll tell you one that just happened. I just got the story today. So one of the things we do to perpetuate our culture is to storytell, right? And we have people submit stories of things that happen in the company, how they went above and beyond for a customer, or it may be for a fellow employee. And we had one where we have a restaurant at Disney World called the Boathouse, and it's it's actually our largest restaurant. It actually, if you took Gibson's Italia and Gibson's on Rush Street and combined them, the sales of the Boathouse would be just ahead of the two of them together.
Wow, that's massive.
Yes. So two people, a server happened to hear two people just complaining about their first 2 days of vacation, that everything that went wrong seemed to go wrong. They had just sat down at the table, and without being prompted, she just brought him a couple of beers and said, "Let's start this. Let's reset your trip and start from scratch, and let's start over." And that alone was just a little thing.
Yeah.
Another one, which is a family came into dinner, and it was a kind of a big deal because I think they were from all over the place, and the 7-year-old girl refused to go to the bathroom because the toilet seats were black. And like it was going to blow the whole night. They were going to have to take the daughter home, and the grandparents hadn't seen them in a long time. And the manager, quick thinking, goes, you know what? The employee bathroom upstairs doesn't have a black seat on the toilet, and went up there and did a quick, cleaning of the bathroom to make sure everything was good. I mean, it didn't need to be like totally clean. It's just, and they got to stay. And like the grandmother was like, thank you so much. Like that just made, this was going to destroy the night, and you saved it for us. And just thinking, it's outside the box thinking, right?
Yeah.
So Will Guidera, who wrote that, is an amazing guy. I've met him a couple times, had dinner with him once. And he is, what he wrote down is, amazing.
Yeah, those are memorable experiences that your staff was able to create for those guests that were in, those customers that came in. What kind of impact does that have on the people who are listening to that, though? Like, do you find that, because you mentioned that you share stories and stories, is there someone now in Chicago that's trying to create
environment? You hope it creates that environment where, I can, not unlike what I was talking about when I was growing up. Oh, that's possible. I'm allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. Like just that alone, especially for newer people that come to work for the company. Oh, that's something I'm not only allowed to do, it's recognized and it's rewarded. That's, because again, a lot of them come from other restaurant groups, especially corporate ones where there are certain rules they can't do a lot of the things that we allow our people to do. Mm-hmm. So that is one. And then the other is you hope it creates that competitive environment that, well, I'm going to be in the store next week,
Yeah.
So.
Man, we try to do the same. It's, it keeps coming back to, regardless of the industry that you're in, you have an opportunity to create a remarkable and unforgettable experience.
Yes.
For everyone. And we try to incentivize around that too, and really take that approach to thinking out of the box. How can you really be that team player? How can you provide an exceptional level of service, not a good service, not an okay service, an exceptional level of service at every touch point?
Yep.
Because the whole client experience for us, as we look at it, is if the client experience isn't great at every touch point, it could tarnish the relationship. It's got to be at every touch point, whether you're on the day-to-day service, whether you're on invoicing, back office, whether you're procuring hardware. It's got to be great at every touch point. And collectively as a team, if we can all deliver a great client experience, an effortless experience, a frictionless experience for our customers, we know that that's going to drive a memorable experience for them.
For sure.
Yeah, so it applies across every industry, and I keep, it's growing up in the restaurant business. Service was, it was everything.
It really impacted my legal career, and you would see lawyers who would tell clients, no, you can't do that, and I was always taught, well, we have it internally in our organization. The answer is yes. Now, what's the question, right? Yeah. Customers want to hear the word yes. Okay, I can't do it the way you want to do it, but we can try and figure out a way to get, what's the end goal? Where do you want to be? Well, let's try and figure out how to get there. Yeah. Right? And that's, a lot of attorneys don't operate that way. They just don't. And so
it's transactional. It's too transactional.
Right.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a bit. So, you mentioned you mentioned attorney. So I assume you went to law school.
I did.
So you talked a little bit about when you were younger in high school, and then you went to college. So tell us a little about that and what then brought you to a legal career.
Sure. So I went to high school here in Chicago at St. Ignatius. Went to Georgetown for undergrad. Was Jesuit thing, and then it was a walk-on the baseball team. So I was on the baseball team there for a few years. Had a great experience. Studied accounting. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, for a long time. And my father, it turns out, he really pushed me into law school. And in hindsight, while I was a good attorney, I would say it didn't fit my personality, right? I was I was able to be good at it, and I had the skills to be a good attorney, but it wasn't me. But what I find out, he's never said this, but this is me piecing it together. He doesn't like lawyers. He really doesn't like lawyers. And
Who does? I'm married to one.
yeah, exactly.
I'm married to one.
Well, me too. But the group that he had, the group of guys that he grew up with, that he was in the business with together, when they split up, it wasn't amicable. There was, there were lawsuits and that sort of thing. And I realized he was pushing me into that direction because he wanted someone in the family or someone he could trust who could
That's huge.
speak that language. And so, I ended up practicing for a bunch of years, although they were early clients of mine, and I did a lot of work with them on leases and fundraising as they did new deals and that sort of thing. So was involved in the business from that perspective.
So how long were you practicing as an attorney? When you were practicing as attorney, did you go directly and support the group, or were you?
No, it was a few years.
Okay.
I mean, my father would usually talk to me about things, but they had outside lawyers
Okay.
before me, and then that ultimately most of it transitioned to me over the course of the first maybe 5 years that I started practicing.
Did you study law at Georgetown as well?
I did. Yeah, I stayed. So what happened was I had an entrepreneurism class in my senior year of undergrad, and we created this television show, and it was we ended up being able to syndicate it nationally on what became Fox Sports.
Really? Wow.
There were all the regional sports channels, including like Madison Square Garden, and it was Sports Channel in Chicago. In DC, it was Home Team Sports, and this is the late 90s. Mid to late 90s, they were looking for, at all these places, just like now, everyone's looking for content. And so we had an idea to do this college football show. It was shockingly easy to create the content, meaning we were able to get interviews with Lou Holtz in Notre Dame, Bobby Bowden in Florida State, Peyton Manning was on our show, Tiki Barber was on our show.
Wow.
Getting those interviews was the easy part.
No, that's great.
The hard part was we had to sell our own advertising.
How did you make money?
We didn't. I think we sold like we got 3 sponsors over the course of, and they advertised every show, but we were filling a lot of what was ad time with public service announcements.
Yeah.
So it was a great learning experience. And then, our strategy was, well, if by doing a national type show, but using these regional channels, we could get access to the entire country. And then Fox actually had the same idea, but from a network perspective. Mm-hmm. And we weren't able to get in front of them. I was 22 years old. I had no idea who to call or talk to. I'd call like the general number at Fox and like, we've got this show and you just bought our network. Would you, I couldn't even get in front of somebody to talk to them.
It was a great experience, though.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
It was wonderful.
Learned a lot of great things.
Yeah.
So I'll let you in on a little bit of that secret that so my son's going to Georgetown as well.
Yeah.
And starting this year, he's reporting next week. He's playing football there.
Oh, nice.
At Georgetown. So we're really excited for him.
Yeah.
He's in the business school he's admitted to the business school, and he's going to be in entrepreneurship. There's also some AI curriculums that he's going to be doing, but we're really excited for him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The professor that taught the entrepreneur class, unfortunately, he passed away, but he was the guy who created the mini bar.
Really?
The hotel mini bar.
Wow.
Yeah, that was his claim to fame, and he had an illness, so he had to sell the business. But so it was great learning from him. We got to meet guys. He brought all sorts of entrepreneurs into the classroom to speak, and
that's one thing that
stuff.
we've noticed that they bring in a lot of people, and there's we're really excited for him. It's going to be a great experience.
The other thing about Georgetown, because it's in DC, is you get all of the politicians will speak on campus at some, when I was there, Bill Clinton spoke and George W. spoke, the presidents, but you get the Supreme Court justices and various congressmen, senators, generals. I saw Colin Powell speak, things like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any advice for him starting off?
If it's like it was when I was there, the business school does not have classes on Fridays. Don't waste it. Don't go out and waste it. Waste every Friday. Use. I think everybody learns this. You get to a certain point and you realize, oh my God, I had so much free time in college. Where did it go?
Yeah.
Most people waste it, doing silly stuff. And you should do some silly
Yeah.
stuff. But
Well, you were playing
you
a
know.
sport there too, so you had a big commitment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was during the spring season. It was a full-time job, but that was my fraternity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I almost never saw the playing field, but still traveled to games
Yeah,
and
it's still
practiced, 5 hours a day, 5 days, 6 days a week. So it was, but it also kept you in shape and kept you from going overboard in terms of, going out too much and having too much fun.
yeah. Yeah, he's excited. We're really excited for him for the opportunity, and I think being able to play a college sport too.
When he'll experience this, the Patriot League. You get to travel to these schools and get to see all these other schools that you wouldn't otherwise see,
Yeah.
and that's fun too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Well, I'll make sure I let him know that to use his Fridays wisely and not waste them. Next week we're taking him out there. So let's bring it back to the business a little bit more. So you mentioned it about reservation systems and technology, and
Yeah.
to kind of get it to relate a lot to the things that we do as well, and in the tech space. How has technology really shaped how you deliver that great experience, that hospitality? Has that shaped or changed the way that you deliver that today?
So I would say generally no.
Okay.
But here's where I'll insert it. Technology certainly has improved a lot of things in the business. I joke, and it's not even a joke. The IT bill for the company when it started was the phone bill.
Yeah.
Like that was it. And all of a sudden now, IT is, whether it's 1% or 2% of our budget, and it's a big number, and it's like,
Yeah.
wow. But our industry is a laggard in technology adoption, and when you get to the fine dining segment of the industry, it's the laggard within
Yeah.
the industry, right?
Yeah.
So not that we don't use it, we certainly do. I would say things like the reservation system have actually put us at a competitive disadvantage in the sense that things that we were able to do because we had that institutional knowledge and the tenured employees who had that knowledge, it's allowed others to catch up to us. That being said, that tenured employee retires, moves, whatever it is, you lose that knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you're able to retain it, all that information of what makes a customer, what their likes, their dislikes, all of that. So that's obviously one thing.
Is your team logging that, and are they logging it into a system to know kind of
Oh yeah,
their likes and dislikes?
Open Table.
Yeah.
The reservation system
Yeah.
is really the reservation system in restaurants is really what is the CRM
Yeah.
for us, and that's where we store all that information. But like anything else, it's garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
You got to make sure it's good information. So, other uses of technology right now, inventory management, labor scheduling, scheduling generally, but we're seeing it's not there yet. AI is starting to have some impact there, but it's not really where we want it to be. But in terms of forecasting and, which then leads to inventory management and scheduling, how to do that, because we have a lot of hourly employees. We have a lot of, our business fluctuates. The single biggest impact on our business is, what do you think?
The biggest impact?
Yeah.
People?
Weather.
The weather.
In terms of like the forecasting your sales,
Yeah.
right, is weather.
Yeah.
So we know and we're in Chicago, so we know that can change in 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So it is, there's lots of other things that impact the schedule too, right? I mean, conventions in town, the Cubs schedule, the Bears schedule, whatever, the sports teams, concerts, all that plays a part of it. But weather is probably one of the single
Yeah.
biggest things. And, so we schedule people 3 weeks out. We want them to have that certainty, but the certainty doesn't really exist because there can be a monsoon.
Yeah, it's unpredictable.
Exactly.
What are you going to do?
Right. But as we get, the goal to have, technology be able to recognize that customer, know their likes and dislikes. We are using that, but to make it even more seamless than we do now, to make it just an experience that, how do they know that? How do, it's like when the ad pops up on your computer and
Yeah, retargeting.
right. That you talked about something and your phone overheard, and all of a sudden you're getting ads for.
They're listening to me.
Yeah.
So as the business becomes more digital, and you went from an AT&T single
Right.
phone line tech expense to now being 1% to 2%, whatever the amount is of the business. Have you been considering the risk that has as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Cyber risk
For
specifically.
sure. Yeah. No, we use a knock and sock. We, in some cases, our adoption has been slow because we're very cognizant about the security issues. Especially we handle so many credit cards.
Yeah.
Right. And
PCI compliance.
PCI for sure. So that's a huge driver of
Yeah.
it for us.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're thinking about that, because oftentimes, even in the space that you're in, it's like, well, we deal with food, we deal with, the data and the technology piece of it is oftentimes, an afterthought until it's not,
Right.
until something bad happens. I mean, last week there was a major ransomware attack of a major manufacturer owned by Coca-Cola, Fairfield, the milk company. They stopped
Yeah.
all production. Like, there's zero production. If you go into the grocery store today and try to buy you're not going to find it. It's completely stopped. So it's like everybody's got a plan until they don't.
Yep.
But oftentimes in hospitality, we see this a lot, where it's more of an afterthought. It's like, we're going to focus on what we do best, and we totally get that, but you can't turn a blind eye to what the real threats are.
My brother, and who's been working in the business longer than me, is really the one who's driven the IT front for us. And one of our first office employee. He's been with us 35 years, maybe, give or take. And so at one point he wore every non-restaurant hat, marketing, IT, you name it. He was in charge of it. So the two of them were very cognizant of that. And we've had a server-based system for a long time, finally moving to the cloud. But that server was being backed up every hour. And so we actually did have a ransomware attack. And they said, "We've got all your stuff. We're locking you out." We're like, "Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. We've got the backup right here.
Yeah.
Go screw yourself."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you had a backup, because many companies don't have any plan in place. So I'm glad you had those types of things. And
Well, those two guys get the credit for it, not me.
well, it's something that's being considered and supported, though. These types of conversations, they're not just an IT issue anymore.
Yeah.
It's a business risk management issue. It's how do you maintain and survive a major attack that can happen to your businesses, which unfortunately are happening far too frequent
Yeah.
across the world.
Well, if we go back 10 years, maybe, my friend was working at the Pentagon, and he said at that time, 10 years ago, there was an army of probably 200,000 Chinese hackers that were working, in shifts around the clock, just attacking every business in the United States that they could do.
Yeah.
That was 10 years ago.
Well, the fact of the matter now, and what the reality is when it comes to these threats, it's not just people that are doing it, it's technology.
Right.
So AI has really upped the game for
For sure.
for these bad actors in these nation states. So it's not just
I'm worried we're getting a little too close to Skynet and the singularity, and the world's going to be over soon. That's a whole nother thing.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, how quickly things are changing.
Yeah,
Just the advancements in the last 2 years compared to the last decade
for sure.
is so significant. So what do you guys have working on? Are you guys opening up new, what's the plan? Are you guys opening up more locations? Are you guys opening up new restaurants?
Yes,
I saw something about West
so
Loop.
we've got something in the West Loop that'll open in about 4 or 5 months.
Great. The West Loop is the best loop.
God willing.
That's what I call it, because I lived in the West Loop, so I say the West Loop is the best loop.
It's a great neighborhood.
Yeah.
Great neighborhood. And we're looking outside the Chicago market, looking in Nashville, looking in South Florida, looking in Dallas, Scottsdale, Vegas even, DC area to an extent. I was looking in New York, and we were close on moving down the path on something, and then that mayor, the current mayor got elected, and
Yeah.
it's too politically risky
Yeah.
to go there.
I get that.
So
In order to do this type of expansion, I mean, you got to have great people too. I mean, my
sure.
philosophy is great companies are built with great people.
100%.
So how do you find, recruit, bring in top talent that's going to help you with this type of expansion?
It's one of those where I feel that it's hard. I mean, I think it's hard for everybody. It's always hard for any business in any industry to find great people.
Yeah.
How do you take a good person and make them great, right? How do you inspire them with great culture, great training, that sort of thing? I think we do a lot of that, but it's also starting with the great person. How do you find them? And we do. We actually, one of the things we utilize from a technology standpoint, our online application includes a personality.
Like a DISC assessment?
Yeah, a little bit simpler than that, but yet, calibrated to our best employees. Like, if you're going to succeed here, what are some of the personality traits that work? And sometimes it's, personalities are on a spectrum, right? And so it's sometimes it's not, you don't want to be at the top of this, you want to be in the middle or near the bottom, depending on what the personality trait is. And so, that's one tool that we use. It's not dispositive. It's not the only thing, but it's a good look into not only finding the right type of person for the role. It's also a great tool from being able to manage them, right? If you read the reports on people, and you're like, oh yeah, that is that person. This is how you get through to that person. How can you motivate them? What will demotivate them?
Yeah.
Right? So,
do you find that within the group that there's upward mobility and being able to move between departments and have new opportunities?
I would say less so between departments, but going, not that doesn't happen, but the trajectory, especially in the back of the house, but also the front of the house. Front of the house is a little harder, and I'll explain why in a second. In the back of the house, we have chefs who started with us as dishwashers, and if you are, show up on time and have a great attitude, you're going to get moved up to prep cook or pantry or something, and if you continue to do those things well, you will progress up. It's a little easier than the back than the front, and the reason is because of the comp that you can make as a tipped server in our organization. We have servers who make a lot of money, and frankly, they make more than management, and it's hard to get someone to jump from server to management unless they understand that. Now, the ceiling for management is much higher but it's a much longer route to take.
That's I'm not shocked at that the servers can make more than management. I mean, they're frontline, they're sales, and they're creating that experience. So I'm not shocked by that, but when you create that great experience and that's driving so much of the business, it's you want to compensate and be able to get people to compensate on the things that are really driving the business forward and continue building that upon that. So,
right. Well, think about like your business or maybe similar types of businesses where it's your top salespeople, right?
Yeah.
They're making more.
They should make more than anyone in the
most
business.
of the management.
Yeah.
Right. So, absolutely.
Yeah. You said I chuckled a bit because you said, if a dishwasher's, on time and they're getting the job done, they got great work ethic. My business sometimes, I had an ex-employee who came to me one day, and it was this entitlement piece of it where they said that they showed up on time every day. They showed up on time every day, and so they wanted a promotion because they showed up on time every day.
Well, what I would say, in our business, I wish that was It's certainly expectation. You'd be surprised
Well,
that, you know,
I don't know. It's just like, I mean, you probably can imagine where that conversation went because, yes, I showed
Yeah.
up on time at work every day. But it is about showing up on time, putting in the work, regardless of what role that you're in. You got to
Right.
be 100% at what you're
Well,
doing
at the
and
end of
do
the
it the best that anybody else can do.
Yeah, I would say, and I've tried to explain this to my kids as they're now just exiting college and entering the workforce. You have to create value for your employer. You have to be worth more than what they're paying you. You can't be worth the same or less, because if you're worth less than what the value you're providing, why are you working for them? You're subtracting from the equation. You're not adding. You have to be able to add to the equation, and if you're not, it doesn't work.
Yeah. That resonates for me because my dad, God rest his soul, my dad would always tell me was no matter what somebody pays you, if someone's going to pay you $1, give them $5 worth and
Right.
give them more value. If your value can exceed what they're paying you, eventually it'll all come together
Right.
and ultimately what you're trying to achieve. So,
That's exactly
yeah.
right.
So are you, just you mentioned the kid side of it and, maybe even the legacy of just Gibsons. What do you want that legacy of Gibsons to be? And are your kids joining at
So
some point the business?
there are 10 grandkids. So all my siblings work in the business. We all
Okay.
had other careers. We all work in the business today. My father's still involved. He's 83. He's still involved in the business, although he's stepped back. But you'll see him at the restaurants. Anytime he's in town, he'll be at one of the
Good.
restaurants. That's his. That's what keeps him going. But of the 10 grandchildren, mine are the oldest. My oldest daughter, she's a computer engineer. Will never be in this business.
Never.
Not her thing. My son just got out of school from USC. He's going into investment banking. He started last week.
Congratulations.
And we'll see. I mean, we had a very, and I don't think this is unique to our business, and I'm not talking out of turn. It wasn't easy to do a Gen 1 to Gen 2 transition, and I'm not sure we're not fully done with that transition. And that succession was driven a lot by me, not my father, in part because I'd done it in my legal career and that sort of thing. And we did get some outside advisors to help us, and couldn't recommend that enough. But had to unwind a lot of things between he and his two primary partners and sort of the next generation of leadership in the business, who were the right leaders for the business, but they weren't going to succeed him to be CEO. And so, the answer is I don't know. We've only started really discussing the Gen 2 to Gen 3 in the last year or so. One rule that we have that is kind of a function of how it worked out for us was everybody in that generation is going to have to work somewhere in another industry if they, you can't just automatically get a job at the company. Now, if they wanted an hourly job when they were in high school or college and, to work in the dish room or a hostess, that's one thing. But if they want to go into management, they have to work somewhere else for a while. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I love that approach because that's exactly, well, I haven't gone through a generational side of that, of that magnitude and within the business, but my goal is to build a generational business. And one thing that I don't want to do and I won't do is force the kids into the business.
Yeah.
Getting a job after school is a must.
Right.
They have to go work somewhere else. And if the stars align and it makes sense and everything works out, then great. If not, it is what it is. And,
Right.
It's God's plan on whichever approach that needs to be taken. But I totally love that approach there.
Yeah, and there's good reasons for it. I mean, they're growing up in the family where they're getting exposure to the business in some ways, and they're getting some of the, what I'll call, those, I don't know, slogans or truisms or, the beliefs, I guess, the beliefs and values that we have they're getting some of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll call the culture, they're going to have some of that anyway. But there's in any business, if you just promote from within, promoting from within is great, and you need to have it. But if you only do that, you get very insular thinking, and people only think one way, and they start getting very, the ideas get calcified, and we can't do that. Like, well, why? Well, we've never done that before. Well, but we could, and here's how. If you only can do that if you've been somewhere else for a while, right? And whether it's this industry or another industry. So
it makes sense. I mean, you create the kind of this tunnel vision, and you're only insulated, and you're only doing what you do. It applies a lot to our business too, because with our clients, most of the time we're either augmenting existing teams of IT teams, or we're delivering all the IT services for them. And it's one thing that oftentimes we find when we work with an internal team, they're doing something, they're doing everything, of what they know, but that's the issue. It's only of what they know.
Right.
They're not bringing other perspectives to the table, other ways of doing things. They've just been doing it the way they've been doing it.
Right.
So it really kind of helps evolve and build more maturity around whatever program it is, whether it's IT, manufacturing. I mean, whatever it is, you're bringing in a different perspective, and I think businesses need that. Otherwise, you become so stagnant, and you become kind of insulated to what you do, and eventually, if you can't pivot and turn on a dime or change your approach, you could become extinct.
Correct.
Yeah. So all great. I mean, we can relate to many different things. I mean, from growing up to running business. When you joined the group, did you join? So it sounds like you were acting as legal counsel.
Yeah.
And then was that the same time that you took the role of CEO?
So titles in family businesses are fluid. So my father was still running the business, but I was coming in, and it was a transition over a period of time where different areas of responsibility would end up in my lap.
Okay.
Things that he didn't want to do were the first things, and then over time I had to pull more and more away from him. But I carried the title of chairman. Was I really the chairman? I don't know. I juggled a lot of different things and wore a lot of different hats, and that was. But yes, asserted my authority at some point after being there. It took about a year before again, it was an evolution. It wasn't an all-at-once thing, but spent the first 90 days just observing and interviewing and talking to people, and not really, getting into I got into the weeds. I went through our management training program that we have a modified one for our corporate folks, but go through like an entry-level manager and
great.
work in the front of the house and back of the house. So did some of that. Talked to all the employees within the corporate office to figure out exactly what we were doing and, frankly, what needed to be done, which was a lot. And building that rapport and trust with the leadership team, who, the fear is you're going to have these guys who have been working there forever, and like, oh great, Daddy's kid, the lawyer, just came in, and he's going to be my boss now. So you got to build credibility.
Yeah,
with them,
you have to. I mean,
so that needed to be done.
So you working in the front of the house and the back house definitely help with that.
For sure.
Yeah, because
right,
it's like,
and to be seen by the staff in the restaurants to know, oh yeah, he's willing to do it. He's willing, And I remember I was working out at the Gibsons in Gibsons in Oak Brook, and one of the managers there he's worked with my father for, since the late 70s, and he kept trying to send me home, and I go, John, you're not my boss. I said, the chef here is my boss tonight. I only go when he says I go, and that alone earned his respect.
Oh yeah.
So that you have to do those sort of things, but then on top of it, and I'm going to segue for a second. I'll bring it back. But do you ever have a moment where somebody repeats something back that you said, you'd completely forgotten about it, and it's one of those things that it had a huge impact on them, and you're like, oh wow, that really was kind of wise.
Yeah.
So there's a kid he's not a kid. He's a partner at a big law firm in Chicago, international firm, and he said, you said something to me one time that really stuck. And I had no recollection of saying this, but now I've repeated a bunch because it is true, and it's true for what I'm about to say. Is he said, you came to me and you said, I'm a good lawyer. I'm talking to him now. I said, I'm a good lawyer, but I'm not the best at what I do. There are hundreds of lawyers around the United States that are at the top of this profession. It's very competitive. I said, what I do and what I do very well is relationships matter. They matter in every business, but they really matter in this business, not just externally with the client, which is huge, of course, but internally. I mean, I was a corporate lawyer, so I was quarterbacking deals when I was only 4 years out of school.
Yeah.
And you're quarterbacking deals with guys who are, 20, 30 years older than you, who are, they might be a tax lawyer or a lending lawyer or a litigation or real estate or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But you're the quarterback, and so they've got to follow you. So they don't have to follow you. So, building those relationships was so important, so that when I needed the best tax lawyer in the firm, he'd return my call, right? They don't. So same thing in it's with the customers, it's internally in any business. It's building the relationships with the people, building those connections with your employees so they know you care about them. They know that you are looking out for them and that you're not looking to screw them over, to get them to go that extra mile and to really give it their all. So that is, I've tried to spend a healthy amount of time doing that. With 2,200 employees, it's impossible.
2,200.
Yeah, 23 maybe, 2,300.
Wow.
And soon to be, we're going to add another 150 with the new restaurant.
Yeah.
Where's
it going to be, in Fulton Market?
Yeah, Fulton and Sangamon. So
Okay.
right across from what was the Timeout Market next to Lyra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
I can't believe the Fulton Market. I remember Fulton Market. We had a client out there that was in one of the meatpacking areas before, they had moved out, and that whole development that was there, that was pretty amazing.
It's been evolving for 2.5 decades, but a lot of those guys who were out there early, the restaurant guys, they failed, not because they didn't have great restaurants, but they were just too early, and they were good for a period of time, but it just the critical mass wasn't there at that point.
Yeah, now it's I feel like it's untouchable over there. I mean, as far as like, the buzz, the nightlife, the social.
15 years ago, we were looking in Fulton Market to buy space for a commissary, and had we done that, we might have made more money doing that than operating restaurants.
Than the restaurants. So 2,300 employees. I mean, you got a lot of, we've got, roughly 100, and, there's, as you grow and scale a business, it's great. And as I said, you need great people to build great businesses around you so that you don't become that choke point. And
Right.
oftentimes people look at me and like, John, look at what you built. And I say, it's not just me. I mean, I sincerely believe that it's the great people who have come through these doors, who have walked these doors, that have actually brought and have been able to build this business for the last 26 years. So, and we keep promoting that too. I mean, as part of our core values and how we establish the business. And it's, there's so much technology, especially in our space. And, there's AI, and there's this threat of AI and consolidation and things. Yeah, we totally get it. There's going to be new opportunities that are going to be created.
For sure.
But the reason I even mentioned, like, do you see kind of like mobility within your team, and, the way that do team members go from one department to another? Those are some of the things that we're really working with our team. It's like there are things that you do today that will be replaced by some sort of technology. But what we really focus on is how do we promote upskilling and reskilling of our team so that they can take on more responsibility to create new opportunities.
Well, in the software space, there are companies that have let a lot of programmers go, and others are saying, oh, I can do 10, 50, 15, 20x with those same people. Now I have to repurpose them, retool them into something else. In our industry, you're seeing, so what I'll say is there are multiple hundreds of software companies in our space. Each historically was good at a solving a particular problem. So scheduling, or it might be HRIS or payroll, or it might be the reservation system. Now, some of these companies and there was always the idea to try and get to an all-in-one,
Yeah.
or it might be an all-in-five. I think we're probably, if I had to count, I bet you we are probably paying for no less than 40 different software.
Yeah. You have a lot of sprawl just because.
Right.
Yeah.
But now with AI, some of these companies are actually getting close to making that a reality.
Yeah. The speed of
where-
development
right?
is
And so,
unbelievable.
and at our end of the industry, again, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be a little bit more bespoke. We have unique problems that you don't see in fast casual or, quick service, fast food restaurants. Just we get, 50 calls a week throughout the entire company of people looking just to get a copy of a receipt. And that is way more trouble than you'd think it would be worth. At one point it could take a manager 30 to 40 minutes to find a single guest check.
Wow.
Another software came along. We're only using it for this purpose. Like, there's no other thing that we're using this. It does 10, 20 other things, but we're using it for this because they can do it in 3 or 4 minutes,
Yeah.
what it was taking us. And that's great, but pretty soon, we're going to see a lot of those different things consolidate and,
Yeah, we're seeing a ton of consolidation in platforms. There's this major issue that businesses face is they've had the sprawl that's taken place. I mean, point solutions to solve particular issues, and then they have this whole.
How do you get your employees to interface on 20 different softwares?
No, it's in
Right?
the amount of
That
inefficiency that's
expectation
created.
is ridiculous.
Exactly.
And so what happens is they just don't, right?
Yeah, they only use a small portion of it. They don't use it at all.
Right.
And then you, as leader of the business, you're still investing. So there isn't a lack of investment that we're seeing in
Right.
technology. It's just there's an effectiveness issue
Yep.
with the technology. So if you can make the technology delivered to them to be more effective, then they're going to embrace those things.
And listen, being user friendly is important. The user interface is very critical, but there's still if the number is more than X, and X might be 4 or 5, right? Different interfaces, people just shut down. They don't want to deal with it.
It's got to be easy.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. See, we can relate a lot to the technology side.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So as we close, specifically on the hospitality, like if you were to take the lens of leadership, just from a hospitality perspective, is there anything that you could leave, other CEOs, other business leaders, like how they can really incorporate on a consistent basis? When you look at hospitality isn't just for the external side of it. I believe that hospitality is also for your internal, so you can deliver
100%.
a great experience internally and externally. Any advice or anything that you'd like to leave the other leaders? I know it's a loaded question.
I mean, I try to. So we have, we don't do it every month because we have some other interactions where we're all getting together, but where we have all of our general managers and exec chefs on a monthly phone call, maybe 8 times a year, and then we have quarterly meetings with them and that sort of thing. And I try to leave them with a quote. Usually, it could be on hospitality, it could be on leadership. And by the way, in our business, like my leadership it's important, but not as important as the leadership in the restaurants themselves. So that general manager and that executive chef, their leadership is far more important than mine in the organization. And so we can preach all these platitudes about the customer and about our core values. And if that general manager and exec chef aren't living it and really exhibiting it on a daily basis, it doesn't matter. And so their leadership is critical. And so I really believe, getting the education and training for that group, whether it's leadership and management skills, is just can't be underestimated at how important it is, or overestimated. I don't know which one it is. But I will say the quote that I left with last time was, and it's a military quote, which is for leadership, which is, the standard you walk by is the standard you accept. And so if you walk by something and there's something on the floor, or something doesn't look right, and you're willing,
I love
if
that.
you don't say anything, that's the standard you're going to live at. And if we are saying, and you said this, and I believe we certainly aim for great, right? We aim for great. And sometimes you miss, but at least you're aiming for it. And so that's, if you want to be great, you can't walk by anything that is not right. Now you may have to pull a manager aside or use the chain of command properly to do it, but you got to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah, I love that quote. That's great. All right. Well, I really appreciate you being in the studio today. Learned a lot of great things about business, about hospitality, how you lead from top down, bottom up, left and right, between all the restaurants, and you mentioned the general managers, the importance of the general managers. But one thing that stands very clear to me is how hospitality done right is truly a master class, like in leadership. And hospitality, both internally and externally, is truly a great strategy, and isn't just a service that you deliver today. The service, the product, it's how you make people feel. In whatever industry you're in, it's something that can really drive tremendous success within the business, creating those memorable experiences. So I really appreciate you being in the studio today.
Great. Thanks
Yeah.
for having me. It was great to be here.
Great. Sounds good.